In today's episode, report at this hour for a test even though I know you can't, or I'll put you on trial. I'll show you. A guy in a bad mood walk into the fast food joint. My apologies, Sergeant, no password, no entry. So let's get started. Report at this hour for a test even though I know you can't, or I'll put you on trial. I'll show you. I graduated high school at 17, instead of waiting to 18 and enlisting to the army like everyone else in my country, mandatory. I opted to study mechanical engineering for a diploma for 1.5 years in hopes to land a better job/position. The draw to studying it was serving in a technological and interesting position in the army that corresponds with the actual things learned. It ended up being a lot different. The army only had us planned as mechanics, and sold it to us as being part of development in engineering. In reality, only 1 or 2 from a class of about 20 would reach that, and that's also a long shot. So I ended up as a mechanic. I used to go to study 30 minutes from my house. Now that I graduated and drafted, I was stationed in a base 200 miles away from my home. I had to travel each Sunday 7 hours through bus to be there, and had to do a job that I never thought I would do, and all that for 3 years? Hell no. So the actual base was really bad. It had soldiers leaving it, forcing their way, in an astounding rates. The commanders were treating their subordinates like shit. The job and the conditions were very hard. I knew I had leave in any means necessary. So I ended up forcing my way out. It was very hard, but it was rather quick. On my last days there, one of the commanders told me, "You'll force your way out of here. No big deal, you'll actually have it worse. You'll be sent to the parent base, and how the hell are you gonna travel every day to there?" There was another one that told me, "You may have won the battle, but not the war." I would always remember that. He was right. Now I was stationed at the parent base that was about 3 hours in a bus from my home. With the situation I was in, sleeping there wasn't an option, so I had to travel to it every day. Unlike the child base, where I slept there. I had to report in at about 8 a.m., but would never be able to make it in time because of the long distance. Most of the others were living in the area, so I was pretty much the only anomaly. I'm in the new base, supposed to start working on engines. I make it very clear from the start that it won't happen. They put me first under one commander, then move me under the head of all of the operation. He gets the idea that I'm gonna be a problem, doesn't really know what to do with me. At this point I'm a wreck mentally. I actually go AWOL every day and go home super early. He knows. The only reason he never put me on trial for it, it's a very big in the army, could have really messed me up if he wanted to, is when he straight up tells me the only reason I'm not putting you on trial for all your sh*t is that I pity you. These are hard men in charge of soldiers known to be problematic in the field I'm at, telling me that, you know at this point that it's serious anyways. While all this is happening, I'm still expected to get in the workforce, since I was still classified as a mechanic. To start working there, you need to go through a hearing test, and this is when the malicious compliance starts. My commander tells me, "You have to report to the test in 8 a.m. I'm telling him I can't. The bus leaves in about 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. from my home, and I still have 3 hours to travel. He says, "I've had with you. I don't give a flying F about that. Report there or I'm putting you on trial for everything." I'm serious. There's nothing I knew I could reply, so I just said, okay. In my mind I was really? Alright. I'll show you. So I pulled off all kinds of maneuvers and made it to the test. I went into a booth, put headphones and had to repeat a series of sounds made from the operator. I was hearing all of them, but I wasn't replying. He stopped and asked me why I'm not replying. I just sat there and said, "Oh, did you actually say something?" "Sorry, didn't really hear anything." After going through all of it, he told me that my hearing is like 50% on left ear and 75% on the right, and that I failed the test. He then went on to sign a document that exempts me from work for 3 months until the next test. Next day, I report in. My commander tells me, "So did you report to the test?" "Yeah." "How did it go?" "Okay." I hand him over the document. He read it and says, "What? So you're saying you can't work for 3 months?" I'm playing dumb. Yeah. Now his face turns red. How? I'm not sure it ever happened to him. I think he knew things weren't gonna go his way, and from there he kinda gave up from even trying with me. So I would wake up every morning, be at the base at around 12 p.m., be told to pick litter from the floor for like 2 to 3 hours and head back home. It was a crazy unsustainable situation, but I wasn't off the hook still. I had to do something before my exempt ends. I ended up doing all kinds of stuff to get disqualified altogether from being a mechanic, removed from the whole corps, and moved to a base right next to the place I used to study to spend the rest of my service. It was a traumatic time in my life. I started clenching my jaw out of stress then, and I still do it 10 years later. I am glad to be over it, and only recently I stopped having nightmares about it. A guy in a bad mood walked into the fast food joint. Cast. A very irritated guy in a horrible mood, me. A store full of rude minimum wage works. A table full of Karens. A few months ago I was looking for a job. I spent most of my day walking downtown in interviews. At this point, I'm in a horrible mood. The only interviews that showed any interest were the ones that looked swifty AF. Most of the day is gone, the whole thing was just a farce, and I'm starving. It was one of these days that nothing goes right. After I was done, I choose to grab a bite. I choose a big local chain of fast food as they make decent food with quite a low price. As I enter, the first thing I notice is that it's kinda full, but the register was empty. I sighed as that usually means they have a lot of orders in the back, and my food would be kinda late. I walked there and the employees, teenagers, probably part-timers or their first job, were giggling on the phone. One of them glances at me and say one moment. Alright, I have no problem with that. And I wait. And wait. And wait. At some point I look at the clock behind them. I was waiting awkwardly, in front of two giggling teenagers for 4 minutes. I decided not to make a big deal out of it. I politely and discreetly clear my throat. The same teen rolls her eyes at me, evidently very annoyed that I interrupted again. The irritation of the day starts creeping out, but as I have worked retail most of my life, I hold it in. "What do you want to order?" she asks in a very rude manner. At this point, I'm quite sure I have a vein popping out, anime style. I swallow my temper. I have to point out, I am generally very polite in my social interactions, especially towards employees, having worked retail most of my life, and order my food, 2 small burgers and a cola, totaling something like €5.5. She rolls her eyes again while, spending the big bucks aren't we, in the most condescending, annoyingly bratty voice you can imagine. At this point I just shrug my shoulders, my upbringing preventing me to make the remarks my brain was screaming at me. I move on a corner on one of those tall bar tables on the side to wait my order, and I take out my small notebook to write some notes on the last interview. I keep notes on the owner's attitudes and other small detail I noticed during the interview. As I mind my bushiness, a wild Karen encroaches on my personal space. "Excuse me? Are you listening to me? I'm speaking to you." I turn around and I'm like, "What? Are you gonna take our order now, or are you gonna keep pretending to work?" I blinked. Then it hit me. I was wearing a similar attire with the employees, a red polo t-shirt and dark blue jeans. Of course, one could mention the fact that my red shirt was a different shade than the store uniform, that mine lacked the store logo and the name tag, not to mention a big leather bag hanging from my side. My years of experience taught me that Karen cells cannot coexist with brain cells. I tried to tell her that I don't work here, and that she must go to the register, something to point here. The way ordering works in big franchises here is, you go to the register, you make your order, you pay, and a server bring it to you. Very rarely would a server go to your table, usually if you take a while to order. After a while of demanding I take her order, I said screw this, and I complied. I took her order. "Alright ma'am, where is your table?" She points at the 5 Karen table, and I nod. "I will be right there." "FN kids, all you know is how to avoid working. You should get fired, you lazy thing," she says as she leaves. I'm 30. No longer a kid, but I do look very young, 24 to 26 with a beard, around 20 shaved, which I was at that time. I would not have it. I was hungry, in horrible mood, and years of self-discipline were crumbling as I was hungry for blood. I went to the nightmare table that consisted of not one, not two, but 6 whole Karens. I put my biggest, fakest of smiles, and I took the order. I even suggested a few non-existent dishes, while ghost writing on my notebook. I then pointed out that I was a big order and it'll take a while. I then left the nightmare on Karen table, and went back in a corner and waited my order in a far better mood. While waiting, a server went to their table and asked if they had ordered. Yes, we have. Are all the stuff here as lazy as you? At this point I started grinning. She had a chance to fully undo my master plan, and she failed to grasp it. I wait for 5 more minutes for my order. I take and leave a happy man. I can only imagine the Karens trying to reorder the non-existent dishes I recommended, after 20 to 30 minutes of not getting their order, only to be constantly told they don't exist, as well as the despairing faces of the stuff trying to reason with Karens. The Karen would wait quite a bit to eat, if they managed to eat at all, while also giving hell to the employees. Essentially, I played an angry mob of Karens into fighting against some very rude employees while I made a gateway with my prized booty of calories, fat, and ice-cold vengeance. Granted, after calming down a bit I did felt kinda bad for feeding a couple inexperienced part-timers to the Karen sharks, but I was caught in the moment. My apologies, Sergeant, no password, no entry. Sorry in advance, mobile user here. I am a soldier in the army. Years ago we were doing a huge training mission that involved a full-scale simulated war. Multiple large military units were involved, including infantry, medics, and my unit, the transportation boys. The mission was 2 weeks in the swamps of Louisiana with no laundry, no showers, and not even proper shelter from the rain. My unit's job was simply driving around bullets, blanks of course, food, water, and people. I was part of a small squad that pulled security for the rest of our squad. Instead of standard big army trucks we had Humvees with 50 caliber machine guns on top. While during the day our job was as simple as escorting convoys around, when it came to free time at the Forward Operating Base, FOB, we were overhyped security guards. My job in particular was to watch the main entrance returning convoys came through. Just little old private me and another soldier on the gun. To get on the post we had little challenge and response passwords that were made up every morning and put out by word of mouth. For example, Thunder and Flash. I call out Thunder, typically hidden in a sentence so a sneaky boy can't tell, and the entering individual replies Flash in a sentence. Being a private, lowest rank, fresh out of basic, all we know is malicious compliance. Sergeant said I don't care if the gosh darn flipping Christ himself shows up, if he doesn't know the password, he doesn't get in. Well, about 4 hours of letting folks on I have a full convoy of about 20 huge trucks, and a ton of tired, wet, and hungry soldiers show up returning from a mission. Their leader, some super high-up sergeant first class, basically, a sergeant who leads the leaders of the sergeants. Super high up to the lowly private, from another unit walks up to me in my Humvee. Me, we have been having some monster rain today, haven't we, Sergeant? SFC, I don't have time for that $bull hashtag T, let us in boy. Me, my apologies, Sergeant. No password, no entry. SFC, visibly red and piping hot at being told to kick rocks by a private, are you joking with me right now, boy? I will have your $1. He then stormed off, talked with his underlings for a few minutes, then proceeded to walk about a quarter mile to where our porta potties were, they are outside the FOB, to ask a random passerby the password. He then returned, said dishwasher, got in his truck, and rolled on in. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.